Recording live from Glory Hole Studios in Chicago and beyond. This is Cognitive Dissonance. Every episode we blast anyone who gets in our way. We bring critical thinking, skepticism, and irreverence to any topic that makes the news, makes it big, or makes us mad. It's skeptical, it's political, and there is no welcome mat. Today is Thursday, January 29th. Fuck. What a week, buddy.
Well, it's been a week. We record obviously on Thursday.
Yep.
Last week, over the weekend.
Yeah.
Alex Pretti was shot, murdered.
Straight up fucking murdered.
Executed.
Yeah.
Executed on the street.
Yeah.
And this story's been everywhere. So if you've been under a rock and you didn't hear it, there was a confrontation at a... some people were following ICE and were also filming ICE. Mm-hmm. And they were blowing whistles, and ICE was walking down the street, you know, being thugs, doing their
thug stuff. And
they started confronting a couple people who were standing on the street. One of them was Alex Pretti. The other were a couple of other people, two women.
Mm-hmm.
The guys, these customs... the right is trying to switch this to make it be like, first off, they weren't ICE, and you're like, it doesn't, like,
yeah, I don't care if
it doesn't matter.
Customs, Border Patrol, or ICE,
whether they're ICE or not. Like,
it's all the same police force.
What you're trying to do is delegitimize some part of it,
right,
so that you don't feel as culpable.
Right.
That's not going to work because you're 100% guilty for doing this and murdering this person. But in any case, they come up, this armed thug force. I mean, fuck, how the fuck am I supposed to know? They don't identify themselves. So who knows what it was? Right. Could have been, hell, it's a fucking Proud Boy January 6er. I have no idea.
Yeah, right.
Covered up in the face, they come up and they start pressuring and pushing him. They push the woman, they start to spray her. They spray him in the face.
Yep.
Then they immediately, he starts to fall. They grab him and throw him on the ground.
Yep.
Then one guy starts wailing on him with a can of bear spray in the front. Just starts wailing on his face.
Just beating him.
He's on all fours. His knees are on the ground. His elbows are on the ground. He's leaning forward. He has his phone in his hand. He was concealed carrying that day, and they pulled his gun out. One of the guys pulls his gun out and runs away. In some of the footage I've seen, very, very potato quality, they're zooming in and saying the gun went off. So they're saying that this gun... was pulled out of him, and that's what went off. At the same time as this gun is coming out, this is well before it gets fucking, the gun could even go off. There's a guy pulling his gun out behind him, who then executes him, shoots him in the back.
Murders him.
So right afterwards, as soon as that happens, that guy takes a step back. This guy is prone on the ground at this point. Alex Pretti's prone on the ground. Another guy pulls his gun out, and the two of them are essentially just unloading their clips into a prone body on the ground after it's over. And that is what happened on the streets of Minnesota. A person was literally executed by the government for no reason whatsoever. And the spin machine has not stopped working for the right since this happened.
Yep. And they are there's a few things that I think are really important about this case. And this is why this is causing like so much chaos and consternation for the right. The first is, let's talk a little bit about the victim of this murder now. Very importantly, this is a white man. That matters because other people that have been shot and killed and murdered by the paramilitary force that is ICE or Custom Border Patrol or whatever you want to like, Customs and Border Control, whatever, like when they are not white men, the attention changes, right?
It's us.
So
they murdered a woman a couple weeks ago.
Right. And, you know, she was in her car. She was using the car. They're trying to like create some space with Renee Good. The right is trying to create space to say, well, this was a justified shooting and here's how. And like, look at this angle. And she was trying to run him over and, you know, all this stuff. The other thing is like, this guy's a fucking VA nurse. That's his day job. And I think very importantly, he was lawfully carrying a concealed carry weapon. Mm-hmm. So when they murder this guy, they've murdered a white guy with a good job working for veterans, right? So he fits a profile that the right is very uncomfortable trying to carve out. Well, this was a thug. This was a
paid
bitchy
protester.
Woman. This was, it's real hard to then carve out a space to dismiss him as a person. because he looks like their idealized person. That's a hard space for the right, I think, first and foremost. The video is also just indisputable.
You can't watch that video and see some. If you do,
right,
and you watch it and you don't see 4 guys kick the shit out of a guy before summarily executing him on the ground, then you are lying to yourself and trying to find a reason not to believe what you're seeing.
Dude, 1,000%. And we talked about this before the show when Cecil and I were just talking. Like, one of the things that I think is really important to do, and I think we need to do more of, is I think we need to spend a moment and look at the first domino in the exchange. And what I mean by that is, in this exchange, this guy, Alex Pretti, was standing on the street using his cell phone. He's allowed to do that. He was filming ICE or CBP or whatever. He was filming this. He's allowed to do that. ICE shoves a lady for no reason. Literally, there is no reason except for that they did not want this to happen. They don't want to be filmed. They don't want to be attention called to them. They don't want people out there. So with no provocation, no legal provocation at all, they start fucking spraying people with fucking mace or bear spray or fucking tear gas or whatever chemical irritant they have. He runs over. His last words were like, "Are you okay?" He runs over to this lady to help. The fucking thug shoves him, which a shove is not an attempt to detain, is not an attempt to de-escalate. A shove is an attempt to start a fight.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Sure.
You shove people not because you're like a legitimate cop performing some legitimate cop thing. Then they attack him. And they're like, and the right spin machine is like, oh, he was resisting arrest. So I don't understand what a person being swarmed, literally, I don't understand. What is a person supposed to do when they've been sprayed with mace, they're being punched in the face, they've got 4 people on them.
They're all shouting different directions.
They're all shouting different shit at you. I don't understand how you can like comply, right? If the choices here are comply or resist, I actually watched that video and I'm like, I don't know how anybody could comply.
I don't know what.
There's nothing to comply with.
If I was in that situation, I don't know what I'd do other than what he did.
Right. He's not trying to fight.
And he's not trying to fight.
But
he's
like
covering up.
When you get pushed, you try not to fall. When you get grabbed, you don't just go limp. I literally don't know what you're supposed to do as a citizen in the case of Alex Pretti to have not been shot. There has to be a thing. I think about this all the time. If there was no thing that I could have done to not be shot, I don't understand how that can be legal, right? If there's no action I could have done differently as Alex in that situation to not be shot, what was he supposed to have done differently? He's allowed to carry that gun, so don't fucking tell me it's don't have the gun.
Well, because they didn't. Okay, so you have to go back to they had no idea he had a gun on him.
Right.
So that's the most important thing, right? He got sprayed in the face before they ever knew there was a gun on him.
That's right.
So the idea that the gun comes into play, that only comes into play because we hire fainting goats for fucking people like to ICE agents in our country and police officers in our country. We have a system in place where someone can have a surprise gun. Yeah. And if that happens, that means they can murder you. If that's the case, we shouldn't have laws that allow people to have a surprise gun.
Fucking A, dude.
Because if you can't, as a person who's handling that situation, you're the authority. Yeah. If you can't handle that situation when there is a surprise gun by not doing anything but opening fire on that person, then surprise guns shouldn't be something that the populace should be able to carry because you can't handle the existence of one. Right. If the existence of one immediately turns you into a fainting goat, then there's nothing we can do to stop that.
Yeah, man.
And the thing is like, we shouldn't accept that as an answer. Right. Because there's too many Second Amendment assholes in this country that have been screaming about concealed carry forever and how that's a constitutional right. Well, here's the thing. It might be a constitutional right, but we've allowed them to have a constitutional privilege to fucking murder you the moment they're afraid.
Yeah, man.
We've allowed them to do this. They don't need to. They should be better trained.
Yes.
If you see a gun and that gun isn't doing anything, you need to stop. I realize bringing a gun into a situation might escalate it, but you're not a professional in there.
Yep.
And neither are they. And neither are they, man. They're not professionals either. These people are fucking, they're worse than Keystone Keystone Cops, they're murderers, right?
Yeah.
Keystone Cops would make it funny. It's not fucking funny. There's nothing funny about this. This is the state murdering someone because they had contempt to cop.
Yep.
That's the
it.
whole thing, man. You don't have to be a fucking genius to see this. This guy stood up to the police and they didn't fucking like it.
Yep.
And whether they were a cop or a border control or a fucking ICE agent or whatever the fuck they were, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Because what they did was they saw a guy and they said, you do this. And he said, fuck you. And they said, I will fucking murder you for that.
Yep.
That's what
it.
happened.
That's it.
So that gun doesn't mean, it's literally nothing in the entire equation.
Yeah, I could not agree more. We don't get to have a system where we say the Second Amendment is a right. Like, let's pull apart the idea for a moment between rights and privileges, right? A right means that it takes an extraordinary amount of legal force to strip me of my ability to do something, right? So if something is a right, then in order for that not to be something I can do, there must be an extraordinary amount of legal force behind that restriction. A privilege is something the government will let you do sometimes and maybe not other times, and it's subject to their sort of like whims and variables,
it's a whim.
right? So in this circumstance, Alex is out on the street, as is his right. We have the First Amendment guarantees our right to peacefully protest to redress our governments for wrongs. We are allowed to speak without the government giving a shit. We're allowed to gather. We're allowed to protest. That's the fucking very First Amendment. We're allowed to do it. We're allowed to do it not because it's a privilege, but because it's a right. So in order to have that restricted by violent force, right? So if ICE or CBP or anybody else is going to beat the shit out of you or detain you or pepper spray you because you're engaging with your First Amendment right, they better have a fucking lot of legal force behind that attempt. That's what was supposed to happen. That has not been the case for a lot of years now.
No, you're right.
What has happened instead is that if you're in the wrong place and a cop decides on their whim that they don't want you to be protesting at that particular moment, they can beat the shit out of you. They can hit you with sticks or bicycles or batons or their police cars or detain you. And then no matter what you do, now you're resisting and that's its own charge, right? So they don't have to have a legitimate first charge. And that's really important, right? They don't have to have a legitimate first charge. They can drop that, but the resisting is still its own legitimate charge. So the act of being arrested can become a crime, which is fucking insane. We don't have a First Amendment right anymore. We all have to just say, we actually don't have a First Amendment right. What we have is a First Amendment whim. Because in practice, if somebody can, even if he never got shot, if I can get shoved and assaulted and beaten and detained and sprayed with fucking chemical irritants because I was standing in a street I'm allowed to be in and using my cell phone to film, which I'm allowed to do, then I'm not allowed to do those things.
And swearing at you occasionally.
Right.
So what?
I'm allowed to do all those things until the moment that force is applied that says I can't do them. So what we've really decided as a country is you don't actually have a First Amendment right. We have whims.
Yeah.
And then the Second Amendment guarantees that I'm supposed to be able to carry that fucking gun around. That's it. The federal law allows it. Some state laws have different laws, but federal law, as guaranteed by the Second Amendment, says I can have that fucking gun.
And Minnesota has a concealed carry.
Yep.
They have that ability. And the other thing really quickly that I can throw out there is they will say, oh, well, you shouldn't bring that to a protest. Well, that's not against the law in Minnesota, first off. That's number one. Number two, don't let them define this as a protest. Don't let them, you're giving them an inch when they do that. This isn't a protest. This was something that happened in the street. This was a monitoring activity.
Yep.
That's what it was. If you pan the street with your camera, there's 15 people out there. This isn't, they're trying to frame this as if he brought a gun into a dangerous crowd of people.
Right.
That's how they're trying to frame this. There's 15 people out there.
Yep.
He's by himself. He's separated away from everybody else. So don't pretend he's not by himself. He's actually protecting women. But you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
He's not in a giant group of people.
Right.
That's not, and also it's perfectly legal to do that.
Right. You don't get to say, here are all the ways that we are going to vehemently defend the Second Amendment. We're going to defend it even when kids get shot in fucking Connecticut or whatever. We're going to defend it when Kyle Rittenhouse shows up and shoots a bunch of people at a protest with a long gun in Wisconsin. We're going to defend it in all of these other scenarios. But when we killed a guy on the other side of the aisle, on the other side of the political equation, the guy who was fit with, then all of a sudden there's no peaceful reason to have this. Fuck you. You literally don't get to say this. That's not possible Unless the Second Amendment, like the First, is a privilege the government decides you might have on any given day at any given moment. That is what's happening right now. The First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, these have all become privileges. We don't have these. We don't have, if you think right now that you're living in a world where you have civil rights, you literally do not.
Yeah.
And all it takes, even if you take the shooting out of the equation with the Alex situation, all it takes is just take a look at that video and watch a man get beaten for exercising his First Amendment right. And tell me how you can reconcile that with the idea that you still have civil rights.
Yeah. The other thing that I hear and that you see people is like, why was he resisting? Why are you resisting? Why are you resisting them? One, what is he resisting? I think that's the important thing. What is he resisting? If you're saying he's resisting, what is he resisting? What were they trying to do? Show me them doing the thing to try to stop, like put him in handcuffs or zip tie him or whatever. There's a guy beating him with a pepper spray can like it's the fucking WWE, man.
Yeah.
It's like, what is he supposed to do? The other thing I want to say too, to anybody who says you're supposed to just comply when they do this, I will pay you. I'll take out a loan. I will pay you $20,000 if I can spray you in the face with bear spray and you don't move. I'll pay you $20,000. You have to not move at all. And I get to spray you. I get to unload a fucking bear spray canister in your face, and I want you to do nothing. I want you to comply at that moment.
Right.
What I want you to do is just comply, and that means I don't want you to move. Don't move an inch. Don't move an inch. I guarantee you there isn't a human being on the planet that isn't going to react when you put fucking bear spray in their face.
And add this. And start beating them in the head.
Sure.
And have four guys all pulling and pushing on your body at different times in different ways. It would be proprioceptionally, it would be very confusing to decide. Like, I wouldn't know if you don't give me clear and explicit directions and the time to comply with those directions, you can't say I was resisting arrest. It just doesn't make sense. The reason this is done is intentional. It's done so that they don't have to worry about an original purpose for the arrest. The cops do this shit all the time. If there's no legitimate original purpose for arrest, then they know that they can grab you, detain you, and you're going to be let go and nothing's going to happen. But if they can create enough chaos during the arrest itself, then even if the original reason to arrest you gets thrown out, which it almost always does, there's still the resisting arrest charge, which is its own thing. So I don't know how you are supposed to respond when you've got 4 people or 5 people all pushing, pulling, grabbing your limbs, doing different things with your body all at once while you're getting hit in the head after having been bear sprayed, and everybody's yelling different shit at you. And the whole exchange lasts 4 seconds, 5 seconds. How is anybody supposed to legitimately say, why was he resisting? Resisting what?
Yeah.
What was the clear and specific direction he was given he didn't follow when somebody shoved him for exercising his First Amendment right?
And let's talk about the shooting, because I think it's important to point out that the guy literally just gets executed. There's nothing. I mean, if you were to show this to police officers, first off, most police officers in the United States probably couldn't find their ass with 2 hands when it comes to de-escalation,
right?
And that they certainly can't when it comes to proper use of force. I would say that about a majority of police officers in the United States. They don't know what they're doing when it comes to this stuff. They often agitate rather than de-escalate. We've seen it time and time and time again. Are there a few police officers that don't do that? Maybe, but I sure as hell haven't seen a lot of them. I'll tell you that. And I've been around for a long time.
Yeah.
What you have in this situation is a guy literally pull his pistol out the moment he sees a gun, and then he just unloads on a guy who's prone and sitting there.
Yeah.
And then, like it's fucking Pavlov's dog.
Yeah, this is a big deal.
The other guy just pulls his gun out and shoots a prone individual in the back multiple times to murder him.
Yeah.
This guy got shot 10 times.
10 times.
Wait, 10 times
10
they shot
times.
him. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish other than execute him?
Yeah,
nothing. What are you trying to do?
But I'm glad you brought that up. People, for some reason, and this happens with shootings all the time. One guy shoots, and then everybody else starts shooting. Yeah. If the original guy shoots, that does not automatically give everybody else in the crowd the same legitimate legal reason or recourse to shoot in my mind, right? Like every time that trigger gets pulled, it's an individual decision that has to have been made. And that person has to have a good legal reason that they had to pull the trigger. It's not just, I felt like doing it. It's not, he shot, so it seemed like a fucking good idea. You were scared, that made me scared. Like, but it happens all the time. One guy shoots and everybody else is like, well, fucking, I'm shooting too. What the fuck is that? What even is that? But it's constant, man. How many police shooting videos have we seen where the first guy that shoots sets off a fucking cavalcade of other people who are responding not to this escalation of threat, right? Because a moment ago, they didn't see a reason to shoot. The other guy shot first and they're just following suit. They're also shooting. That should be illegal. Why is that not illegal?
Yeah, man.
You were scared, I got scared.
I just think like we have given, like many other things in our country, the Overton window has shifted. And the Overton window has shifted like you described earlier, in the sense that what used to be, you had a right for free speech and you had a right to carry a firearm. We've shifted so far into authoritarian territory that it is now impossible to do those things. And that spills over into all kinds of things. And that also spills over into, there is no repercussions for murdering this person.
Yeah.
These people are just like every other cop in the world. They're on desk duty now. They're going to get a couple weeks off or whatever.
Yeah.
That nothing's going to happen to him. There's no criminal charges that ever really happen to police. On occasion, once in a while, a big thing will happen and there'll be some criminal charges, but it's really rare. It's so rare. These people get away with it. They murder people in the street for the state and they get away with it. They shouldn't even be up there anyway. And we talked about this to death, but they shouldn't even be up there anyway. There's no reason for them to be up there. They're literally only there to intimidate. We've shown this time and time 100%. And time again. There's no real, like, legitimate immigration reason for them to be there. They're there because they want to intimidate. Like, show me all these amazing, like, collars you've gotten while you've been on the job.
Right.
There's nothing. They're not up there for that. The idea that they're up there for that, or they're up there for the fraud. Like, genuinely, what you want to do is just have them come on your entire face. Is what you want. Like, it's embarrassing when people say this, because you're just like, what? You don't send armed people to deal with fraud. That's not how dealing with fraud works, right? I don't need to send an armed person.
It's not like an accountant with a fucking AR-15,
you don't need to do that. So it's not about the fraud. It's never been about the fraud.
No.
We're at a real deep inflection point in a place where we may never get these rights back. It's never, like you may never get these rights back. It may never happen.
Yeah. I was thinking about, when I think about like some sort of like things that I think maybe parallels worth considering, communities of color have dealt with police violence at extraordinarily high levels since the inception of the police.
Since police exist.
Right. The police existed as fucking slave catchers, right?
Course,
that's where the modern policing movement is derived from, as we know. So like, communities of color have been dealing with this fucking forever. But when I think about, at least the way that I was educated, maybe this is like Pollyanna shit, so forgive me if it is, but when I was educated about like the civil rights movement, when I was in high school, one of the things that we would watch were these videos of the police and sicking dogs and fire hoses and beating people who were just there, just people who were not creating violence, creating havoc, creating chaos. They were just being in a place where the police didn't want them to be. And one of the reasons that was shown when I was a young person was because it shocks the conscience. It shocks the conscience. And it says, holy shit, this is just such an unacceptable level of violence from the state that it cannot be allowed. It has to be taught historically as something that was this shock the conscience level of violence that we cannot return to.
Sure.
And then I'm fucking 48 years old and I'm sitting here and I'm watching people being beaten in the streets and killed in the streets because they were in a place that the state said you don't have a right to be in today. How is this not conscience shocking? You don't get to be a person who can look at the videos of people being hosed and had dogs attack. You don't get to hold these two things at the same time and not say this is the same, because they'll tell you what, it's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same. The state does not get to beat you and shoot you and shove you and spray you and kill you because you were standing in a place exercising your First Amendment right and the state decided they didn't want you to do it today. Fuck that, man.
God damn it. Those slimy pieces of shit got away scot-free. No prints. No leads. We ain't got shit.
Jetzt haben Sie die Scheiße.
Who the hell are you?
Agent Hitler, F.B.I.
Source from the New York Times. Why did the Trump administration silence Bovino on social media? When the border chief got yanked from Minnesota, he lost access to his X account as well. So you guys all know, Greg Bovino is the Nazi greatcoat wearing fucking fascist that was in charge.
He's on the side over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who immediately after this shooting and every act of violence is like, yeah, he fucking deserved it. Yeah. Like, it doesn't even matter what the facts are. I don't even know if he watches the videos before he comes out and is like, this is what we intended to do. Yeah. Whatever, man.
Yeah.
Put him in a boxcar. We don't care.
Yeah.
You know, he's a fucking actual Nazi. So the temperature has risen and the pressure has risen and he got fucking bust down. And now fucking Tom Homan is going to go to Minnesota and this guy's going to go to El Centro or whatever. And he got like booted down a few notches. I don't think he's been fired.
No, what his plan is they're going to, at least according to an Atlantic article I read, the plan was to send him back to California for a couple of months or so, and then he was going to retire.
Sure.
So that was.
So he didn't even get fired.
Yeah.
He doesn't even get fired. But when he did get bust down a few notches in order to be the fucking sacrificial lamb here, they took his fucking X account away.
They did.
And this is interesting stuff.
Yeah, they took his X account away. I think like one of the reasons why they, that they were trying to do this sort of thing is because he had some criticisms of him that were popping up online and he was getting bogged down in the comments. Like, so here's a guy who's supposed to be in charge of, these really important operations about all these immigration problems that we're having in this country. And he's fucking like anger typing on his phone in the parking lot of the fucking 7-Eleven up there, the Piggly Wiggly. He's like, I'll show you. I'm his little, I called him on my Facebook account a Nazi squeak toy.
I love that.
And like genuinely, this guy is like, he's this little mousy guy who's going to tell you about how these people deserve to be murdered. But he got mad. He got angry. And he started tweeting at people that were criticizing him and trying to defend himself in the comments. And I think eventually I think what they really got upset with was like, we don't ever answer to those people.
Yeah.
So what are you doing? We don't answer to those people.
Like the whole Trump machine is extremely online.
Yeah.
And it is designed, I think that extremely online is designed to appeal to the other extremely online right-wing faction that is in large part feeding the recruitment for ICE, helping to build up support for ICE. All of that stuff is happening mostly in these extremely online spaces. And I think they realized this dude's a fucking enormous liability.
Yeah.
Because we're not sure he's going to stay on message because the message is probably it's his fault, right? They're lining him up to be the scapegoat.
Sure.
And so they want to shut the fucking scapegoat up so they can beat the shit out of this guy and I would do I probably strategically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
smart,
man.
smart.
Do the same thing. It's like, who's going to eat shit? Shut him off so he can't talk back because he might say true things and he knows a lot of stuff. Shut him the fuck up, bust him down, blame everything on him, and then shift the narrative.
Yeah. And then they could do the same thing to Noam too if they wanted to.
Absolutely.
And they very well might. There has been some back and forth there. One thing I want to address, which I've seen online, a lot of people sort of, after this murder, this execution of Alex Pretti, there was a backlash from not only from people on the left, but also people on the right, because the messaging around this, and we'll get to it with a couple of stories, has essentially been like, hey, maybe you shouldn't have had that gun there. What was Alex wearing? Mm-hmm. Alex was wearing a gun. Maybe he shouldn't have had that gun there. And a lot of, single voter 2A people, this is absolute poison, right? You can't get rid of one. That's a voting block you need. You have to have that group. That can't be a group you neglect. That can't be a group you push away. So those Second Amendment single issue voters, when they hear the government saying, maybe you shouldn't have as big a Second Amendment as you thought. That's a real concern to some people, right? To certain groups of people.
Yeah.
And so they stepped in a fucking, messed up the hornet's nest, stepped in a landmine, whatever your choice is of their metaphor, they fucked up. And they had to do damage control, right? This is part of that damage control, showing that this person needs to go, because this person was genuinely one of the people who was out there saying, hey, maybe he shouldn't have that gun. We don't think you're only doing bad things when you have a gun. A lot of the message between Kash Patel and Noam said the same thing. They lied about how he came at them. They said he brandished a gun.
That's a big deal, man.
They lied about that. So there was
intent on massacre.
there was a big deal about how they lied about this before a bunch of videos came out to show that they were lying. Well, actually, I think it was contemporaneous. I think it happened at the same time.
Doesn't that seem insane?
And I think they were basically like, oh, whatever. But let me finish my point real quick and we'll get into that. But what I want to say is damage control means damage was done, right?
Yeah.
So it's important to remember that if somebody took damage from this and this guy is the collateral damage, I'm not saying be happy, but I am saying let's take it as a win and let's move forward with that idea that we need to exploit this point, right?
Right.
This is the moment you're working between, the pauldron and the chest plate, and you're like, oh, there's a spot there.
Right.
There's a piece. There's something in there. I might be able to wiggle this in there and get it into the armpit or whatever. That's the important piece you need to remember. Don't throw this away as like, well, it's nothing, and they're just going to replace him, and it's not a big deal, and who cares? Like, it's damage. It's genuine damage. Recognize the damage, and then try to amplify to stop them from killing more people. And you can do that if you look at where this damage is, and you say, let's make sure that there's more of that.
Yeah. That's a great point. That's a great point. Like, when we see something like this, we have to continue to exploit it as a vulnerability that will continue to exist.
Yeah.
Their lack of consistency on the right does not usually hurt them.
Yeah.
But it does in the case where they're trying to work against reality in a way that, like, they have to create some kind of like fake narrative. And the narrative they chose was, well, there's no reason to bring a gun here. The Trump administration and all of that spin machine, they're working against video now.
Yeah.
And they're trying to gaslight reality, and it's not working. And it's not working because of the work that people like Alex and Renee and others were doing, which is showing up and filming it. And everybody's showing up and filming it. And Tim Walz said, show up and film it. And so we've got video from fucking 50 different directions of all of these events, which makes it impossible for them to say what they said and have people believe it. What they said was he showed up, he brandished a weapon intent on a massacre. He went there to kill as many people as he could. Then you watch the video, there's literally no evidence of that. And now the 2A people, if he had brandished a weapon, if you were a 2A person, you'd be like, yeah, you can't fucking brandish a weapon at a fucking cop, and they would not have to rush to the defense. Now the 2A people on the right are like, wait a minute. In order for me to be consistent in my view of saying Kyle Rittenhouse and all these other, we should have guns bristling off of us at all times.
I'm still against guns too, by the way.
I am
just
too.
letting you know, like, I'm still against guns.
Same. I would support any legislation banning them tomorrow.
I don't like the idea that people have such easy access to guns. That doesn't mean that this person did anything wrong. And I'm not saying that, but I am saying Cecil personally still doesn't like guns in the populace.
Yes.
I still don't like it. And I say that as a gun owner, man.
Same, man. Very the same.
Yeah.
But what I think is we have to point out is that the Trump administration is trying to rewrite reality.
Yes.
And if we don't swim upstream against that and say, hey, man, you can't tell us demonstrably untrue things about the world, that has to matter as its own thing.
Yeah. Because
if they're willing to lie to you about the things that we have video of, imagine all the things they're lying to you about when there is no video.
I mean, that should tell you everything you need to know about their level of honesty, right? That should tell you everything you need to know. If you're willing to lie to me about shit I can already know, I already have access to. And they have literally sicked their spin machine out to go spin this however they can to try to to try to just lessen the guilt of this, to do is whatever they can to lessen the guilt. And the most of what I'm hearing online is, what was he wearing?
Yeah, right.
What was he wearing? What was he wearing? I got into an argument with a person yesterday, and they said, well, everybody knows when a cop says something, you should comply. And I said, he was on all fours and he was prone. What else was he supposed to do? You're fucking, their boot is so far down your throat, they can wear you like a fucking leg warmer.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, there's nothing to comply with.
Yeah, I don't understand what he should be doing. This is one of those things that they can't even come up with a reason other than like really stupid platitudes that don't make any sense anymore.
Yeah, right.
And this is a story that's basically talking about that very specific piece. This is, from CNN. Gun rights groups decried the administration's rhetoric on Alex Pretti's gun. Then Trump went even further, and Trump basically came out and he was like, "Yeah, I don't think you should have that kind of gun. I don't think you should have guns." He's saying all of these things that are clearly anti-Second Amendment.
Right.
This could absolutely bury you. This is poison for those people on that side that are literally only single issue voters.
Yeah, there's a huge number of people who believe that we should have an unfettered right to have a firearm at all times on your person in any place with no restrictions. There's a case the Supreme Court is hearing right now, or has just heard last week, in Hawaii about the legality of Hawaii as having like a sort of default position that says you can't concealed carry unless there's an active notice saying you can in a building. We have the opposite here in Illinois. You can unless there's a notice that you can't. So they're hearing a case about this right now. At the same time that Trump is basically like, yeah, I don't know, like maybe you just shouldn't bring guns places.
Yeah, he says, with that being said, you can't have guns, Trump said. You can't walk in with guns. You just can't. You can't walk in with guns. You can't do that. But it's a very unfortunate incident.
Generally, he shouldn't have been carrying a gun. I don't like he had a gun. I don't like that he had 2 fully loaded magazines. That's a lot of bad stuff. Look, you can't have your Second Amendment and eat it too.
These people, that what they want to do is they want to try to find anything they can. Like, well, how many magazines did Kyle Rittenhouse have?
Yeah, I know, right?
Like, what did he have?
Kyle Rittenhouse, Trump had fucking lunch with Kyle Rittenhouse. Yeah. Trump fucking did, like, he paraded him around as a fucking right-wing folk hero.
Yeah.
He was more than happy to have Kyle Rittenhouse on his side as a guy who showed up at fucking 16.
Yeah.
Not legally carrying. Really important to note. Not legally carrying. Having a long gun. Murdering people. And also, I think it's important to note the difference between why people might be carrying at an event. I don't want to go too far down this road, but Kyle Rittenhouse showed up to a protest carrying a long gun in order to protect, what he said, in order to protect property rights that were not his property.
It wasn't his property.
He wanted to show up to protect property rights for properties that were not his against protesters, against citizens. Presumably, Alex might show up or other people might show up concealed carrying while monitoring ICE because the state is carrying and brandishing fucking weapons. Yeah. There's a big difference there in terms of what are we trying to do? Are we trying to actually protect ourselves from other people who we know with certainty are armed, or maybe protect other people when we know for certainty are armed? Or are we trying to protect property rights with an illegal gun that you borrowed and you're too young to have?
Yeah.
There's a big difference.
Against probably unarmed people.
Yeah. And exactly. And the right fucking, they all got in line and sucked Kyle Rittenhouse off one by one by one by one. And they can't back this guy?
They can't back him.
What the fuck, guys?
Yeah.
Have you checked all these people's identification cards?
No, we haven't done that. Why would we have done that, G.I.?
To see if there are any known Nazis. If so, they will be dispatched of in short order.
Well, I don't think there are any Nazis here.
That's what a Nazi would say.
New York Times Representative Ilhan Omar is attacked at town hall in Minneapolis. A man who'd been sitting in the front row rushed at the Democratic representative and sprayed her with a strong-smelling liquid. He was removed by security and later booked into jail. And she continued her speech.
Yeah, she went to punch him. So I saw an interview with her afterwards.
She went to punch him?
So what happens? Let me see if they play it. We'll play a video of it.
DHS Secretary Kristi Noem must resign or face impeachment.
Oh, she does.
She does.
She goes to throw hands.
She goes to throw hands, and she talked about why she did it. And I was an interview I saw, and her comment was, "I thought he spit on me. I wasn't looking at him.
Oh,
I was down, and when he spit on me, it had such a violent reaction that my first thought was." She's like, I grew up with brothers. She's like, the first thing I thought is I was going to jack him in the face.
I love it.
She's like, the first thing I thought was like, I was going to punch him. And so that's what she was going to do. She like ran. I mean, she literally runs after the guy.
She doesn't. She's got her hands up.
She doesn't hide behind other people. She like when, I don't know if you remember, but there's like been a couple times where Trump hears something and he like dives for cover or whatever. She's like, come on, what's up? This guy, evidently, I thought I read today. I haven't seen anybody. They said it's a foul-smelling liquid, but I thought I heard somebody say it was vinegar or something. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know.
I was curious if anybody knew it. What he had sprayed.
But in
on
any
her.
case, this person just came up and sprayed a bunch of shit on her. And like here's the thing: this is all just turning the political temperature up. Like this is all that's doing. And I think the difference between, and I know that there'll be people who say, well, you go on the other side Nazis, you're calling it. And like, one, don't do Nazi shit. People don't call you Nazis. I've never been called, the times I've been called a Nazi in my life, and it has happened a couple times, I've laughed about it. I've been like, oh, you don't even, like you're using words like a toddler. Right. It doesn't hurt me because I don't do Nazi shit. Yep. So number one, don't do Nazi shit. That's the most important thing. But I think they'll try to false equivalence this by saying, well, you guys are raising the temperature by using the Nazi language. And that is what is raising the temperature. And that's causing people to react badly and whatever and go up against ICE. And I'm like, well, one, they're not murdering ICE people. I think you notice that ICE is doing the murdering. So it's not even the same thing. They're not attacking these people. They're literally just being murdered by them. That's not the same thing anyway. That's a false equivalence. But I also want to say, too, there's a difference between the public saying something about a person or a group that is in authority and a person in authority talking about another group.
Exactly.
This is the difference. And the difference here is they have been turning the temperature up on her for forever. Mm-hmm. He calls her awful names. He talks about how crooked she is. He talks about how awful she is. He talks about how rigged she does. Like she's doing all kinds of terrible things. He is demonizing the president. The most important person in the country is demonizing a person, and then he is motivating his followers to do it. That is a very different thing than a grassroots effort to stop authoritarians from being more Nazi-ish than they already are.
Yeah, look, a couple of things to add, because that's exactly right. Like, first of all, like just a yes and that. Like, it makes a big difference when the tools of the state are being leveraged rather than some guy on Twitter.
Yeah.
Right. There's a big difference we're not even on Twitter. Let's take it offline. It makes a big difference when the tools of the state are being used versus the tools of the citizenry. Let's offer an example. The tools of the state, a bunch of dudes with fucking Kevlar vests and AR-15s and fucking, armored personnel carriers versus people with cell phones. Because that's the actual conflict that we have right now.
Absolutely right.
Here's a bunch of people with cell phones versus a bunch of dudes with fucking machine guns and shit, right? Don't fucking email me. A bunch of people with fucking assault rifles and, other tools. There's a big difference between the tools of the state and the tools of the citizenry and what's being used. So don't fucking, to your point about false equivalence, I'm 100% there. To your point about Trump's been vilifying this woman for fucking forever. But he is also, to add to fuel to the fire, he has been vilifying Somalis.
Yes.
And she is a Somali. She has Somali heritage. I think she's from Somalia, actually. But so that ramps that temperature up in two different ways. It ramps it up politically and racially.
Yes.
I'm Chuck Schumer. You see the issue?
I do see the issue.
I give people diarrhea just with my eyes. You see, as an establishment Democrat, limply holding the line, that's our bag. But fighting back and winning, that's spicy.
So stories from the Hill. Democrats lay out immigration enforcement demands to avert shutdown. So there is a budget and spending bill that is coming up, and it is a packaged bill right now. And that bill...
Is this the one they kicked the can down the road from the... Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so that packaged bill includes funding for the fucking fascist police force. And the Democrats are like, look, we'll vote on all the other pieces of it. We can just disentangle the bill so that it does not include this extra fucking unbelievable amount of money in a giant slush fund for the Nazis. And then we'll go forward. Because if we don't do that, then you're going to have to do all this other stuff. And, you know, the Republicans, of course, want to have an enormous fucking blank check for the Nazis.
I think that there are a few Republicans, which is why I think it's important not to lose sight of this. I think there are a couple of Republicans, especially Second Amendment Republicans, who are starting to tire of what is happening. They're starting to see that this is not a good thing. I think I even saw a comment from Abbott the other day who was like, I think we need to like rethink how we're doing this.
Oh, you think?
I mean, there's been some pushback. Someone, I think it was Tom Tillis yesterday, they were interviewing him and they said, Trump called you a dummy. And he said, oh, if I'm a dummy, then I could be head of his Department of Homeland Security. Like he basically was like, yeah, whatever. He can call me whatever he wants, but I'm not going to fund any of this. So there are a few people who aren't. There are. So there's a couple of Republicans. Let me say this. If you're a Democrat and you vote for this, I hope you never, ever, 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 ever have office again. This is blatant authoritarianism in our country. You cannot comply with this. If you comply with this in advance, they will just, this is that old adage. If you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Yeah. This is literally it out. It is writ large right now. Do not give them an inch. You cannot back down on this. If this shuts down the government, it shuts down the government.
Fucking shut it down.
It shuts down the government. That's just how things work. We can't keep retreating. You can't. This is your one opportunity to hold the line. Yep. This is your one opportunity to stand in the shield wall and push. You have that opportunity now because we've been retreating this whole time. Now we're at the hot gates. Okay. I got a shield wall. I might be able to press you guys. I might be able to stop you guys. But
I love all the armor metaphors today.
I got a lot.
I just want to say I got a lot today. I love it.
But I'll tell you what. I got it. I'm pushing. If not, they're going to get through, and it's not going to stop. It's just going to keep going. And if you are a coward on this, I don't trust you to not be a coward on anything else forever and ever. I saw there's a person who's been in the news a lot. Her first name's Kat and her last name it starts with an A. I don't know how to pronounce it, right? I'm not going to bungle her name, but she's been making the rounds on a lot of these other news organizations because she is someone in Chicago who's running for Congress, right? So she's a brand new fresh face out in there who's running for Congress. I think she's running for Danny Davis's seat when he retires. So she's running and she's making a big deal out of it. A lot of people don't like her. They don't like the way she might not be from this region and she moved in here, et cetera, et cetera. So there's maybe some back and forth with that, whatever. Here's what I'm going to say. She said the right thing when she was at Broadview the other day. She was like, I promise you I'll make these people pay. That's what she said.
That's it.
All you got to do is say that. Yep. The senator who's going to be maybe running in the primary for Durban said the exact same thing.
Good.
I'm going to do two things. I'm going to stop them from doing this and I'm going to make them pay. Those are the two things. That's all I want to hear. Yep. That's all I want to hear. If you don't say that, if you don't come out and be like, I will make them pay for this. They have sufficiently fucked America enough where I will make them pay. I don't want to hear from you ever again.
Yeah, man. It's not enough to say, let's stop it. It's like, let's stop it. Let's make people eat the shit that they should eat for being violent authoritarian thugs. And because that's the only way it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
Right. We've got to survive 3 more years of this. We have to survive that. I don't know how that happens. It doesn't happen without chaos.
It doesn't.
And shutting down the government, I think we need to show people that like Trump brings chaos and anarchy to everything he does. There is this weird memory hole that like happened during the Trump administration where people don't seem to recall how violent and chaotic and fucking disorganized and shitty everything was. They don't seem to have that held as a memory somehow attached to his leadership. I don't understand that. Think back to the summer of 2020 and the fucking absolute shit show chaos that erupted all over this country. All over this country. The way that the government responded to its citizens during the George Floyd protests was a fucking nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. And that was immediately followed in the wintertime by January 6th. Trump brings chaos and anarchy everywhere he goes. We should not be afraid to have some chaos, meaning a shutdown in the government, a second one in 3 months. Fuck it. Yeah, that's what Trump brings.
Okay.
Trump brings chaos. Remember all the shutdowns during Biden? There were none.
Yeah.
Shit was pretty chill, actually.
Yeah. I visited for the first time ever Berlin this last year.
Oh, interesting.
And I went on a tour, and there was a lady who was running it. And when we went to the different places, we did see some sites that were, because we visited, and there was, we crossed over to see several places that were sort of under not only communist rule, but then also just what happened leading up to this, right? So like not just the Berlin Wall, but also there's like they have a memorial for all the people who died in the Holocaust. This person who was running the tour, the way they described the education that they get around the Holocaust, they're like, it's intense. Like everybody has to follow like all these rules we have to really learn deeply about what we did. They were still very apologetic about the things that they did while they were talking. This person wasn't alive. This person was long dead, right? But like, it's the same thing as the way we should feel about, like, I wasn't part of this country, but I should feel the same way about slavery, right?
Sure,
I should feel the same way about slavery. That's a Holocaust too, right? That was a Holocaust as well. But we never properly punished the people in this country for slavery.
Yeah.
They did, right?
Right.
They did. They properly punished those people who went out of their way to spread authoritarianism and murder people under that banner. And they properly punish those people. We need to properly punish the people in this country that think that we can turn this clock to Nazi, that we can turn it to fascism, that we can turn it to authoritarian rule by one party. We need to punish those people so it never happens again. Because if you let them off the hook, then they're just like emboldened the next time.
Wow.
And what we need a whole group of people who will be like, we're sorry that happened. And the people who are wearing the red hats now need to, for the rest of their life, be like, yeah, I'm sorry we did that. We fucked up.
That's a really interesting point. And I'm curious what your thought is here. Because as you were saying that, I was like, holy shit, we are entering this sort of, I feel like, specifically in the last like 10 years with this Trump bullshit, but like we have like begun this new national project of forgetting, of purposeful institutional forgetting in order to avoid exactly what you're talking about. We're stripping the reality of history, the difficult reality of history, from our monuments, our public places, our museums, our textbooks. We're doing the exact opposite.
The exact opposite.
Because one thing that what Germany did, I think, was we said, okay, we want to guard against fascism. How do we do it? We can't allow that to reoccur. How do we make sure it doesn't reoccur? Well, we have to contend with the emotional, psychological, institutional, and practical realities of these horrors in our history. And what we're doing is saying, I think, and I'm curious what you think, is we're saying, I want to do a fascism. So what do I need to do preconditionally in order to make that occur? Let's make sure that nobody has to contend with these elements of our society that would force us to feel uncomfortable about these violences that we've committed.
And it's not just the uncomfortableness is to them, they say, you're oppressing me. Right? When they feel uncomfortable about it, when they feel uncomfortable, then they're like, well, I didn't do a slavery. And you're like, yeah, that doesn't matter. That doesn't mean that America shouldn't try to always guard against those things and punish people who think that's a good idea, and punish people who treat other people as the other when they are when everybody should be treated the same. We should be able to. We shouldn't allow that sort of thing. Look at what's happening with when they're shitting on DEI and all this other. Look at how they're trying to roll everything back, basically memory hole us about how slavery worked.
Yeah,
they're trying to tell us that the PragerU's like, nope, the slaves really loved it. They had a great time. Like, that's what we're doing. Yeah. We're not just like you say, we're not just not punishing them. We're enforcing it by making people forget how bad it was.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fucking crazy. It feels like this moment where we've decided to say, what lessons can we learn from Germany? And Germany's saying, what lessons can we learn in order to make sure this doesn't happen again? And we're saying, what lessons can we learn so that we can enable it to occur here?
How can I slip one past the goal?
Yeah. What a fucking... Ooh.
Oh, I can't wait to be a fucking piece of shit today. Wow, what a lovely, beautiful day to harass people who are at work, like the dumb, useless fucking cunt that I am. I'm going to be a tool that drives this country into a civil war where millions are going to lose their lives just because I don't know how to talk to women.
Source: the New York Times. Move to seize ballots thrusts FBI into Trump's election conspiracy claim. FBI agents searched a Fulton County, Georgia election center for ballots from 2020, escalating an investigation of a heavily Democratic jurisdiction the president has criticized over his defeat.
Are they going to find anything, you think?
No.
Do you think that they'll fabricate something?
Yes. I actually think that what'll happen. No, here's what I honestly think. I think the same thing that will happen that has always happened with these investigations. They're going to make a lot of noise about how they're going to go find all this, and then they do it, and there's nothing there. It feels very much like when they hired the fucking like code ninjas or whatever to do a fucking forensic audit. And they're like, we're going to find this stuff in Arizona. And the fucking ninjas were like, there's nothing here. Every time they do an investigation, they cannot even come up with the barest sliver of anything.
Yeah.
I actually think that this is just going to all fucking fizzle into nothing because they won't find shit.
That would be amazing. I think that would be great. I think what's going to happen is they're going to get some indictments, but I think that they'll get thrown out. I think it'll actually make its way
that
to
might
court
happen
because
too,
I think like the Justice Department has been able to get indictments on some people, and then they find that they had like a tennis person instead of a lawyer or whatever to do it. And they're like, oh yeah, that's not anything.
Yeah.
You can't just hire your greenskeeper to be your lawyer. And then they're like, no, it's not how this works. And then they throw it out. So I think they might get that far, but I also think that this could also open them up to start seizing and stopping voting in different places too, which is very scary. And that's an America that we don't come back from that. That's a civil war America. Once the moment they stop voting stuff happening, that's a civil war America, I think. I don't think that there's anything else after that. I don't think that there's an America really after that. I think we're a Trump America after that.
I think we are too. I'm worried. We've got a long time between now and November, and I am very concerned that part of what's being done right now is laying a sort of groundwork for some kind of national emergency measures for the midterms.
Right.
I don't know what that would look like exactly, but I would be unsurprised in key districts if like armed troops were present at polling stations as an act of intimidation.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that might happen too. I hope that what happens, and what I saw this week with the protests, and I didn't see a news story about it. I saw a video about it. So again, I'm not sure exactly if this framing is exactly correct. But what I saw was after Pretti's shooting, after the execution of Pretti, they mobilized the National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
National Guard came in and they gave people coffee and donuts.
Huh. Yeah.
That's because it was mobilized by walls.
Yeah.
And so he basically said, he sent them out and they were just like, hey, you want a donut? And they like had donuts that they were giving out to just protesters. And then they had coffee and warming stations and things like that where they could just like go hang out and they were just there to support the protesters. That's what they were there for. And so there's part of me that wonders, like, let's say the government sends in troops.
Mm-hmm.
Will we see a bunch of people standing there with water and chips that are National Guard people encouraging people to stand in that line across from those people I wonder if that will be the case.
Yeah. And I wonder how much that will just have an impression of just suppressing the vote in general terms. Because if I'm a vulnerable person, am I going to be like, I'm going to go to that polling place and stand in line? And I don't know how that's going to work. And I don't know who's going to be in charge. I don't know which of these two guys on the other side of this line with guns is going to be on my side. You know, like, it might not be worth it for me to go out today and stand in that line.
Yeah.
I imagine, I just need everybody listening to just think about the idea that we mobilized our National Guard to make sure that we were safe from ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever happened before. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know that we've ever mobilized our National Guard to protect our citizens from a federalized police force. Yeah. That should be a moment where we all are like, oh my God, because that is a fucking hair's breadth away from a civil war.
An actual civil war.
That's how we have a civil war.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I was thinking too, And I saw one of the people, I think he was from Philadelphia, like a DA from Philadelphia, or maybe the attorney general or something like that of the state, had said, if you ICE people commit crimes here, I will prosecute you. I will prosecute you. And I wonder if that causes a civil war. Right? What happens when the state police officers go to the hotel and grab one of these, or try to grab one of these ICE officers, if they're like, no, you're under arrest for killing Alex Pretti?
Yeah, and then the ICE officers back up their boy, and then the federal government and the state. We are so close.
We're so close.
Think we are so close.
Every day we're so close. And I think like it's a real nightmare, and we knew it.
Yeah.
And we fucking knew it. We knew it was going to be a fucking nightmare. We knew it. We read it on the fucking air, man. We read last 2 years. We've been reading it on air. We knew it was going to be terrible. We knew it was going to be awful. We knew this was going to happen. Nobody was fucking Nostradamus. We knew it. We saw it.
You know, I was reading, I never do this. I was reading the other day some reviews. I don't know why I did this. I have not read a review of this show or any of our shows in fucking years. And for some reason, I read some old iTunes reviews from this show from a handful of years ago. And there was just a handful of people saying like, Trump derangement syndrome. And I wonder what they think now.
Yeah.
You know, I genuinely, I don't care if they don't listen or whatever. This is not everybody's cup of tea. But like, I do wonder, I wonder what the people who are out there screaming about Trump derangement syndrome, I wonder what they think now. That it's hard to imagine that people are like, yeah, you guys are really worried about nothing. Unless you were already a hard right-wing nutjob.
Yeah, I think a lot of that Trump derangement syndrome, very specifically, was put out into the world by people who felt guilty voting for this absolute piece of shit. I think that's most. It's all cope. That's essentially all it was. I think we're in a really dangerous place in the United States right now. But I think like I have that hope that when I watched them try to lie, and I watched them try to twist it, and then I watched the pushback, and then I watched them have to stand on their back foot for a second, I'm not giving up. I'm not standing down.
Yeah.
There's an inch.
Yeah.
There's a place for me to push. We need to keep going.
Get in there.
Don't look any victory in the mouth and be like, how many teeth does it have?
Yeah.
Don't do that. Be like, it's a victory. Let's build off it. Don't throw it away as if it's nothing, because it's important. I realize we're all cynical. Hey, man, we're all fucking cynical. We're all there, okay? We're all super cynical right now. But we can't, I think at this point, cynicism isn't going to help you do anything positive.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're exactly right, man.
That's going to wrap it up for this week. We're not going to have a special show this week, but we will have one next week. We're going to be back on Monday with a full show, and we're going to leave you like we always do with the Skeptic's Creed.
Credulity is not a virtue. It's fortune cookie cutter mommy